There is a major effort taking place to curb free speech in this country, irrespective of our Constitution or Bill of Rights. And free speech advocates say the United Nations has come down on precisely the wrong side. The United Nations has adopted what it calls a resolution combating defamation of religions. The United Nations now wants to make that anti-blasphemy resolution binding on member nations, including, of course, our own. That would make it a crime in the United States if the United Nations were to have its way to criticize religion, in particular, Islam. Kitty Pilgrim has our report.
The UN General Assembly is considering a binding resolution urging member states to make it a crime to criticize Islam.
What they would do would be to make it illegal to put out a movie or write a book or a poem which somebody could say was defamatory of Islam.
The so-called anti-blasphemy resolution would call on governments to pass their own laws to determine what can be said about religion in public. The resolution urges states to provide within their respective legal and constitutional systems adequate protection against acts of hatred, discrimination, intimidation, and coercion resulting from defamation of religion. But the U.S. says the concept of defamation of religion has another meaning. While appearing in name to promote tolerance, the implementation of this concept actually fosters intolerance and has served to justify restrictions on human rights and fundamental freedoms. Even talking about the influence of Islam on terrorism could be called criminal under this resolution if adopted by an individual country.
You are entitled to say that in America, but not if the UN has its way. They would criminalize that kind of practice, and they are trying to do it elsewhere around the world.
A group of 57 Organization of Islamic Countries, the largest bloc at the United Nations, has been pushing it out of concern, it says, over anti-Islamic behavior, saying this resolution is a major step towards sensitizing the international community on the serious impact of defamation of religions. Last December, the General Assembly passed it as a non-binding resolution. And this year, a binding resolution is expected to be introduced as early as March. Human rights activists say its influence is already being felt.
There have been a number of prominent cases, most recently in India, for instance. The editor of a newspaper was charged for reprinting an article that had initially been printed in the UK.
While the article mentioned the three major religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the editor was arrested for, quote, hurting the religious feelings of Muslims. Now, essentially what this resolution would do is to urge countries to pass laws in their country which would be unconstitutional in the United States and basically violate the spirit of many Western judicial systems, Lou.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One is, of those 57 nations supporting this resolution, how many of them are democracies?
I couldn't tell you, but many of them are Islamic countries. Pakistan has led the charge on this and has tabled this resolution.
So they're not democracies, and they're fascinated with their own precepts about what would constitute the way to run a nation, not like ours. Is there any discussion, or perhaps of simply, if the United Nations insists on doing this, sort of bulldozing the building, getting it out of the way, and letting them go find another place to live?
It wasn't really discussed in my my discussions today.
Well, perhaps we can raise that as an alternative to impinging on our constitutional liberties. Kitty Pilgrim, thank you very much. Appreciate it. From the United Nations. What a place. Well, joining me now.
Police van, sparking protests, riots, and questions about racial bias. This past summer, the Obama Justice Department ordered the reforms in Baltimore, as it has in 14 other police departments, finding that Baltimore police unlawfully stopped and arrested large numbers of people in African-American neighborhoods and often used unnecessary force against them. Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh said the agreement is a good start.
We hire our police department to protect and serve our citizens. We know that many of them put their lives on the line. What is important that every aspect, every individual, every person, regardless of what you think about them, what you thought they might have been doing, everybody deserves respect.
Kenneth Burns is with WYPR in Baltimore. Hi, Kenny.
Hi, Robin.
So list some of the things this agreement requires the city to do.
Well, this will require officers to use de-escalation tactics when necessary. They'll require more training of officers, require standards for transporting the people they arrest. And there's a whole section on how to treat sexual assault victims. There has been a reported history in regards to how seriously, or more accurately, how unseriously some investigators take some of the sexual assault cases.
It also addressing the mentally ill on the streets. Well, what are police saying about these reforms and the fact that the city has to hire a police monitor?
Well, it should be noted that the FOP...
And this is the Fraternal Order of Police. These are the police.
Yes, this is the Fraternal Order of Police. Their president, Jeannie Ryan, put out a statement not too long ago, despite continued assurances by representatives of the Department of Justice that our organization would be included in the consent decree negotiations. No request to participate was ever forthcoming, and we were not involved in the process.
Well, so the Fraternal Order of Police, the organization that represents police, may be feeling outside the process, but we understand your police chief is applauding it.
He is applauding it. He was at the news conference today. He called it a path forward for reforms that they began before the civil rights investigation took place.
Now, the Obama Justice Department has pursued civil rights investigations in 25 law enforcement agencies. These resulted in consent decrees in Cleveland, Albuquerque, New Orleans, Seattle. In his confirmation hearing this week, Attorney General nominee Jeff Sessions was asked about these kinds of civil
Rich Thomason in Washington. Following a year-long civil rights investigation, the Justice Department's verdict is in on policing practices in Chicago.
There is reasonable cause to believe that the Chicago Police Department engages in a pattern or practice of use of excessive force in violation of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
Our investigation found that this pattern or practice is in no small part the result of severely deficient training procedures and accountability systems.
Lynch says while progress has been made on reforms, there's more work to do. It's work that Lynch says will require federal partnership as well as independent oversight.
The right thing, whatever it is. I may be right, and they may be right.
The president-elect speaking at Trump Tower. Security preparations are underway in D.C. for next week's inauguration.
At Secret Service headquarters, Director Joseph Clancy said the inauguration shares the same high-level security designation as the Pope's visit, as well as the Republican and Democratic conventions.
Are there specific or credible threats to the president-elect?
There's nothing specific or no credible threats at this point. In the last inauguration, we weren't as concerned about the drones, the UASs, the unmanned aerial systems.
In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.
So we tried aerial systems.
In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.
So we...
In this drill, a drone sprays...
systems.
In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.
So we try to...
In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.
So we try to what if these things constantly. We do tabletop exercises, and so everyone is on the same page.
Fox's Catherine Herridge. Retired Marine General James Mattis is closer to being considered for Secretary of Defense.
He will face a confirmation vote in the Senate. It looks like, he'll get a bipartisan vote there. The problem, though, is that he has only been off of active military duty since 2013.
Sprays the crowd with a chemical agent. This drill, a drone...
systems.
In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.